As Commissioner Phillips said, my name is Larry Karp, and we put together this little program for you tonight about our financial situation and about the future of the fire district. Last year, when we met with some members of the community, one of the first questions they asked us was, what's your mission? What's the mission statement of the fire department? We didn't have one, so we came up with one. Basically, it's to provide services for you, the residents of Fire District 2. We're here today, as this says, to discuss the financial outlook for Fire District 2. Our revenues over the last 10 years have not kept pace with our income. It's not a new problem. It's been here for a while. We just haven't addressed it. So the commissioners will be placing a ballot initiative on the November ballot for a levy lid lift to provide for the needed operating funds of the department. We don't know what that amount's going to be yet. That's one of the reasons we've called for a public meeting, because we'd like to hear comments from the public. There's a lot on this slide. This is just a history of what we've done in the last year leading up to today. We had several meetings last year. The commissioners voted to put an initiative on the ballot last year. We heard from the public. The public said, why don't you wait a year, come back to us with more information, and that's what we're doing today. One of the important things, though, to read is in July here, I met with Jack Westerman. If some of you don't know who he is, he was the assessor for Jefferson County. And Mr. Westerman, who's been in office for quite a while, we had a pretty good conversation, and he told me very frankly that we're in financial trouble. He said, you guys can't keep spending the money that you don't have. And he highly recommended that we balance our budget on the property tax revenue that comes in. He said, your operating budget, those everyday expenses, should equal your property tax revenue. Because any of those other revenues that we get during the year, and we're going to talk about some of those in a minute, are not guaranteed revenues. So he highly suggested that we don't base our budget off of those irregular payments that we get. That's just a continuation of the timeline. Kind of a busy slide here, but it was just a real basic, here is our tax income that comes in. It stays pretty steady year after year after year, and I've worked it out for an additional 4 years based on what we're getting today. It's going to go up very, very slowly up. This gray line is our combined income, everything that we got income on during the years, and you'll see it's not quite as straight. Some of these peaks that we've had, we'll talk about those in a few minutes, but that's mainly timber tax money that we used to get, and we can't count on that anymore. And then these are our expenses, obviously above our income for just about every year going back for the last few years. So we asked ourselves, what would you as a family do if your expenses outpaced your income? Think about that for a minute. You'd probably find maybe another job, you'd reduce your spending, you'd hold off on major purchases. Well, a fire district does the same thing. We either have to find alternate funding sources, reduce our spending, which we've been doing, hold off on major purchases, which we've been doing, or eliminate some services. Again, here's the timber tax money. That's the line for $100,000. This is about $160,000 that came in that year. This is $132,000 that came in. The last couple of years, we're at near zero. This was huge for the fire district in the past, and we're going to talk about that in a little while. Subsequently, here's our bank balance on December 31st of each year. Yes, that's $1 million right up there. And it's come down. We've been spending more than we've been bringing in. So I want to tell you a little bit about who we are, what we have, what we do, what vehicles we have, what structures we have. at what costs we have. What is it that we spend your money on? Our fire district staff. I'm the only paid member here in Fire District 2. I'm a full-time member. I put in about 50 plus hours a week. Besides me, I've got Deputy Chief Mo Mosier. Mo spends about 30 hours a week here, and we don't pay him nearly enough for what he does for us. He makes a little stipend each month and doesn't barely even come close to making half of what the minimum wage would be. But he's a volunteer on the department, and he puts his time in. We have office help here at the fire district. I've got Jean Morris. She's my administrative assistant. She puts in about 30 hours a week with us. I've got an administrative volunteer, Dave, who comes in strictly on a volunteer basis, and he helps us with office work. He helps us with our EMS inventory. It's people like him that really help this district move, because he's not costing us a lot of money, and we need that. Besides that, we've got our resident program. Our resident firefighter EMT program are the guys that we hire to man the station 24/7. Generally, they're younger guys that want to get into the fire service, and they come here for an education. They don't get rich coming here to Quilcene. They work a 48-hour shift. So the guys that are on today, they started yesterday morning at 8 o'clock. They're here around the clock until tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock when they go home. We pay them $3.75 an hour. So it's really hard to keep guys at that rate right now. It's real hard to raise a family on $3.75 an hour. Besides that, we've got our volunteers. Some of our volunteers are firefighters, some are not. Some are emergency medical technicians, some are not. Some are here just to be drivers of our vehicles, and we need that. Some are here to be fire ground support, to help us in exterior type operations. They don't know much about being a medic, they don't know much about firefighting, but they can be hands on a scene to help us. We have about a dozen vehicles that we have to maintain here at the fire district. The most used vehicles are the aid cars, or you can call them an ambulance. We have 3 ambulances. We have 821 and 23 are normally stationed right here. 822 is stationed at our station on Coyle. Now you'll notice a couple of those aid cars are about 20 years old, which really doesn't sound so bad. I'm sure some of you have cars in your driveways that are 20 years old. I think the difference is mine has to start every single day. I don't have that option to call a neighbor to come pick me up. I don't have that option to walk or take my bike. We have to maintain these vehicles. So when they start getting to that age of being 20 years old, it's about time to start thinking about replacing them. Even if they're running well, you never know when that last mile is going to be. We also have a converted aid car. We call it Support 21, and it's a converted aid car, and it carries some of our extra supplies in it that we need at fire scenes. An air cascade system to refill our air bottles for the firemen. A wheeled Stokes basket. That's a basket with a huge wheel on it to make trail rescues. Rehab supplies, extra air packs. Then we have our big red fire engines. Some of them are fire engines, some are what we call tenders. A tender is a big water tank, right? This one here carries a little more than 2,000 gallons of water. These carry 1,000 gallons of water, but they're all big, they all cost us money. You'll notice our tender is a 1986, goes along the same lines as the aid car. Once they get over 20 years old, we have to start worrying about where we're going to get the parts for them, how much is it going to cost us to fix it. A few more of the vehicles we own. Bought a used brush truck from the fire service years back. This is our little brush truck that we have over at Station 22 on Coyle to get down some of those smaller roads. And of course we have a couple of command vehicles. Some of the stuff you might not have thought about. Obviously we have annual preventive maintenance we do on all our vehicles, but all of our engines need an annual pump test that we have to pay for. All of our ladders have to be tested once a year. All of our air packs have to be tested once a year. NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association, they're the guys that make the standards that I have to follow. One of their standards says that tires on a fire apparatus can be no more than 7 years old. That's one of those deferred maintenance items that we've been deferring for a few years. It may not look dangerous, they may not be dangerous, but if one of our guys gets into an accident with a vehicle that has tires over 7 years old and we don't pay attention to a national standard, the lawyer is going to have a field day on that one. And we have about 44 large tires on our vehicles. They're about $700 a piece. Can't change it all at one time. I put snow tires on here. Some of you probably don't buy snow tires or use snow tires, but I have to. We have to go up all these driveways for the people who live up in the hills. And we'll never make it up, some of them, without snow tires. So, unlike some of you, we have to have 2 sets of tires for some of our vehicles. Let's talk about the structures we own. We're a little bit unique here. This is our station. This is our main station. This is Station 21. We store our vehicles in the bay. We have a little kitchen area. We have a little classroom. I have nowhere here to store the support vehicle I showed you a few minutes ago. Nowhere in here to put all of our air bottles and our EMS supplies. So we use the annex building. That's that building right here to the east. That's the old fire station. We use that to store a lot of our equipment in. I also don't have an office in this building. I have my office across the street. So that's a third building that we have to maintain because we can't fit everything in the station. The residents, the firefighter EMT residents that work the 24-hour shifts, they live in that ranch house across on the other side of Herbert Street. So whereas many departments get away with one building, I've got 4 that I have to maintain here. And that means 4 separate utilities, 4 separate insurance, 4 separate maintenance. I also have a water tower on premise that we maintain. We have our 2 extra properties that we're looking to liquidate that instead of letting them sit empty, we're renting them right now to bring in some extra income. And we have the garages or barns right across the street that we use for some more storage space and for training purposes. That's everything I just explained to you. Our 3 garages, there's the annex, the house the residents live in. Separate insurance, separate utilities, preventive maintenance, repairs on all of that. Maybe you haven't seen this before. This is our station over on Dabob. That's Station 23. And our station on Coyle. We keep an 8-car, the brush truck, and an engine in that station. And again, the same expenses, and we also have a water tank over on Coyle for extra water when we have a fire. I've gone through many of these, but stuff you might not have thought about. Everything's costing us money. Replace our tools get old. We have the cost of training. We have classes we send our people to. We have to pay for travel costs, props and materials for the classes. And something I'll touch on in a few minutes again, dispatch fees. We pay JEFCOM, or Jefferson County Communications, a little over $10,000 a year to dispatch us to your calls. So basically that comes out to about $28 for every call that we go on. So when somebody sees smoke in the distance, you see smoke at the end of East Quilcene Road because you think your neighbor's burning a pile of stuff, and you call up 911 and you say, I got some smoke, I don't know where it's coming from. My financial meter starts as soon as they set off our tones and call us out, because that's $28 for us just to hear the tone out. Then I have to pay a small stipend to all of my volunteers who come in, and then we have the wear and tear and the gas mileage on our vehicles. So nothing here is free for us. There's one of our handsome resident firefighter EMTs, and he's dressed up in his basic station uniform, and I've listed the prices there of what it costs me. And you think some of those prices might be a little bit high, but again, National Fire Protection Association tells me that there's standards on what we can dress our firemen in. We need to dress them in all cotton or fire-resistant materials. And there's what we're spending for those. Another one of our handsome firemen dressed up, can't quite tell, but there's what it costs to outfit him just like this. Now, another one of those standards that we follow. Fire helmet, hood, bunker coat, pants, gloves, boots. Doesn't matter what size department you're on. Doesn't matter how busy you are. Doesn't matter how many cobwebs they get on them. You're only good for 120 months, 10 years. At 10 years, they tell us they don't want firemen wearing the gear because it degrades. It breaks down. So we follow the same rules as the city of Seattle would follow. At the end of 10 years, even if it still looks good, we could get in trouble if we let the guys continue wearing it. We have a lot of equipment that we buy here at the fire district. A lot of zeros in the prices of the things that we end up having to buy. That's our rescue equipment to get people out of vehicles. Just about every volunteer on my roster has a radio and a pager. They're not cheap. My guys lead active lives. Sometimes they get broken. Sometimes they get lost. That's what it costs us to replace them. Some more of our tools. We've got a saw for masonry and steel. We've got a saw for wood. We've got airbags, thermal imaging camera, flashlights. As I said a few minutes ago, everything costs us money here. We go out on an EMS call and we bill our patients. Most of the time, a lot of the time, or even maybe some of the time, insurance pays for that. They don't usually pay everything that we ask them for, but they usually pay us something. Except if it's not an emergency. You know, I can't, or my guys can't tell you, no, we're not taking you to the hospital. If somebody stood up here in the room right now and said, I've got a headache, I need to go to the hospital, we'd have to take you. And if we couldn't justify it as a true emergency, the insurance doesn't cover it for us. But we still have to take you. We've taken people who've said, I got a toothache. Seriously, I got a toothache. Now, we pretty much knew they wanted to go and get some drugs at the hospital, but we have to take them. People do abuse the EMS system. We have a big district here. We have 72 square miles, and a good part of that district, there's only one way to get to it, and that's going up to Dabob Road over to Coyle Road, and down to our Station 22 is a 22-mile drive. So we put a lot of miles on our vehicles. A lot of wear and tear on our vehicles in a year. What are we doing to save money here at District 2? We're trying to pinch our pennies. We're reducing our costs. We're shutting off our utilities. I look at every single bill that comes in before I let Jean look at it and pay it. And if it looks different than the last month's bill, she pulls the last month's bill and we compare. I find out what was ordered. We are scrutinizing every single dollar that goes out of this district right now. We're doing our own repairs on things. We're not sending little things out to a mechanic. We're not sending out little things to have somebody fix. These guys are doing it themselves now. Every length of hose that we own that's on our vehicles, and we have a bunch of hose on the tops of our vehicles, every length has to be tested every year, meaning we have to lay it out on the street, fill it up with water, shut off the nozzle, build up the pressure, and make sure it doesn't pop on us. In years past, we hired a firm to come out and do that for several $1,000s. Last year, I had the guys do it right here, and we saved several $1,000s. That's the type of things that we're doing. We've been very, very frugal or thrifty with our spending, and we've been putting off mandated inspections and repairs. So we go back to about that slide 7, all the way in the beginning, where I asked what would a fire district do when the expenses outpace the income. I've gone to the commissioners and we've looked at our financial reports, and we need to cut $100,000 out of our next year budget if we don't figure out a way to raise more money. The easiest way to cut money out of a budget, if anyone's in business, is usually your labor costs. That's usually a majority of your budget. we can cut about $120,000 out of the budget by eliminating our resident firefighter program. Or we could ask the taxpayers for a levy lid lift to cover operational expenses, to make up that difference between the income and the expenses. A third option is to ask for a lid lift to not only cover operational expenses, but to also help us begin putting money aside for replacement of vehicles. We do not have a vehicle replacement fund here. We have about $200,000 in our bank account, and that's it. We don't have a fund to replace a vehicle. So if my tender goes out next month, or if one of the 8 cars goes out and we need a major overhaul, or we need to buy a new one, we don't have money being set aside right now. That would be key to starting that process. So you want to see a couple of financials. That's the assessed valuation of Quilcene right up there. $339 million. At 75 cents per thousand, which is what we're collecting off of your taxes right now, that brings us $254,000, give or take. Next year, our assessed valuation is going to go down a couple of million. And before anybody asks that question later on, I'll explain that to you. Previously, our electrical utility was a private company, right? Now PUD's taken it over. PUD is a governmental agency. All of their infrastructure, all of their property comes off the tax rolls. So we're gonna lose $2 million worth our assessed valuation. So that same 75 cents is going to bring us a little bit less next year. And all of our other costs are still going up. These are other options for raising, and that's what it would bring us. $1.50 is the max that a fire district can go to. Assuming we went somewhere right in the middle, I want to give you an idea. $1.25 per thousand. With a $200,000 house, you'll have an annual increase of about $99. That was the simple math on that. Now, the assessed value of your house is normally not what you think it's worth, not what it's been appraised at, or not what you think it's going to sell for. Normally, the assessed value for tax purposes is a little bit less than that. I've been looking at tax bills from some residents the last few weeks, and for the majority of them, when I ask them what's your house worth, and then I look at their tax bill, their assessed value on the tax bill is a lot less than what they thought it was worth or what it's going to sell for. Your homeowner's insurance. Every fire department in the state of Washington gets a score from the Washington State Ratings Bureau. That score is a numeric number between 1 and 10. 1 being the best fire department in the state of Washington. A 10 meaning you really don't have much of a fire department. We're an 8. We're an 8. What are the reasons we're an 8 and not any better than that? We don't have hydrants all through our district. We don't have full-time staff who can assemble a large crew here real quickly. But we're an 8, and we're an 8 and not a 10 for 2 reasons. 1, because we have 24-hour staffing, and 2, because we have a tender. That tender is like a portable hydrant. It shows up and we've got 2,000 more gallons of water right in that tender. If we lose any one of those 2, our rating will probably go to a 10. We're trying to avoid that. I've talked to a couple of insurance agents in the last week. I talked to a woman up at an office in Port Hadlock, and I talked to a woman at a Allstate office in Silverdale. They both write policies here in Quilcene. When I told them what I was doing tonight, and when I told them what we wanted to do with our levy, some of their comments were, they couldn't give me exacts because everybody's insurance is based on your own individual finances and home and credit report and all that. But they each told me you'd see a substantial increase in your premium if you went from an 8 to a 10. Some firms will not write you a homeowner's policy if your Washington State Ratings Bureau number is a 10. They told me a $50 increase in taxes would be a drop in the bucket. And you'd probably be paying increased premiums 5 times that amount. I would encourage you to call your agents and ask them. Let me give you a little information here on the other fire districts in Jefferson County. We're fired. Okay, we're Fire District 2. Our fire levy is 75 cents per thousand, all the way across. That's that same number, pretty close that I showed you before. Fire District 1 is East Jefferson Fire Rescue. They protect the city of Port Townsend, Chimacum, Port Hadlock area. Their fire levy is a little bit difficult to figure out. It's somewhere around $1.83, plus the city of Port Townsend subsidizes them with a bunch, and we don't have those figures. So they're at least $1.83 plus what they get from Port Townsend. Jefferson County Fire District 3 is Port Ludlow. You'll see they're at $2.59 per thousand compared to our 79 or 75 cents. Last year, our guys ran 336 calls for service. Port Ludlow ran 789, so a little bit more than double the call volume and 9 times the taxes. Jefferson County District 4 is Brennan. They're currently at 73 cents plus a 50-cent EMS levy, and they're asking for another 50 cents this August. So this is what they collect now. That's what they will collect if they're successful in their levy increase in 2 months. And then District 5 is Discovery Bay, and they're at $1.50 per thousand. So everybody wants to know, why are we hurting? Why are we here today? That's the main question. One, timber taxes are now almost non-existent to us. We'll talk about that in a minute. Previously, for you who've lived here longer than I have, we used to get a 6% bump in our tax money each year, regardless of where the assessed value went. We got a 6% bump to help offset our costs. Well, Initiative 747 in 2001 limited that increase to 1% a year. Not a totally bad idea, but the idea here was we're going to limit you to 1%, and every couple of years you ought to be going and talking to your voters and telling them, here's why we need a raise this year. We haven't done that in quite a few years. So we've only been collecting 1% more, and everybody in this room, I'm sure, can agree that our costs have gone up much more than that. I know this is hard to see in the back of the room. I know it is. This is the amount of money that we collected every year since 1990 in timber tax money. Over here in 1996, I got $154,000. Over here in 2005, I got $160,000. I got $50,000 in 2009, $132,000 in 2008. An average of about $6,000 the last couple of years. We can't count on this timber tax money anymore, and that's what this fire district was living on for a long time. Commissioner Phillips is going to tell us, if you want to talk to us about this now, or you want to wait till later?
I can talk right now.
Okay.
The primary reason for the timber tax changes is the federal and state timber management plans have changed drastically in the last 10 years. That's the primary reason. Also, later on in Chief Karp's presentation, he'll talk about volunteers. At that time, the timber management changed. Also, the number of young people living in Quilcene, employed privately and through the Forest Service, has changed drastically. Those people all participated as volunteers the Forest Service people were allowed to leave their job and come and go on calls, and there were a lot of young people here. Now we're more of a retirement community, and that has had a huge effect on the fire department.
Thank you. Just another way of showing that, that last screen, the timber tax money over the years. If you look at this red line here, that's a $40,000 line. Everything above that is over $40,000. We wish we could be near that line again, but we haven't been. That's how all over the chart it's been over the last 15 years. I talked about Initiative 747 a little while ago, and I took a hypothetical analysis. If we had a $200,000 tax revenue that we brought in year one, pick any year as year one, and each year for the next 10 years, if we added a 1% increase, as we have to now, or on the old 6% increase, you'll see how back in the 90s, we could have accumulated a lot more money a lot quicker. Now the increase we're getting, $2,000 a year, everything else being equal. That's the second thing that is hurting us. Not because it's there in place, because it's a good safeguard, but because we as the leadership of the fire department haven't come back to the voters in the last 20 years asking for any more money. So, besides trying to save money and not spend so much, what are we doing to find alternative sources of revenue? Remember, that was like thing number one that you should do if you need more money, right? We're now, for the first time, we as in the fire district are collecting the EMS transport money. The money that we collect from the insurance companies when we transport a patient to the hospital is now coming to us. Burn permits. Previously, anybody who did a large type burn on your property would have to get a hold of ORCA, the Olympic Region Clean Air Association. You'd have to call them down in Olympia, or go to Olympia, or go to their website, and you'd order a burn permit. It'd cost you $100, and then we would still have to go out if there was an issue. So instead of them issuing the permits, we're issuing the permits now. Same cost, a lot more convenient for our people, and we're the ones that are going out there anyway to check on it. We are now billing non-residents for auto accidents. There's no reason that somebody driving through Quilcene causes an accident and causes us to expend our resources that we should collect from their insurance company. We are now doing that for the first time. We also have the ability to bill for non-transport EMS calls. So again, it goes back to that auto accident. Get an auto accident, got 3 or 4 patients that we tend to for an hour, and they all say, well, by the end of that hour, they don't want to go to the hospital. We've already expended your resources. We're going to bill those insurance companies. We're also sending the accounts to collections if people don't try to communicate with us. We understand everybody cannot always pay their bill, and we will 100% work with anybody if they cannot pay the bill. But we can't work with somebody if they never come to us, if they just blow off the bill, right? So to protect you and what you've got here, we're sending people to collections if they don't communicate with us or our billing company. Something we've never done before. I talked about these 2 properties we have, one next door here and one over on Rose Street. Trying to kind of make lemonade out of lemons. We had these properties, they were sitting vacant. Commissioners decided, well, in the interim, until we can decide what's going to happen with them, let's bring in some money. So we're bringing in about $1,500 a month to the fire district by renting these 2 properties. These are our finances over the past decade. Real simple. The red is our operating expenses. This is what we're spending each year. The yellow are the capital expenses that we spend. Capital expenses are typically those expenses that we spend on items that are going to last us more than 5 years. If we're buying a vehicle, if we're doing a roof repair on this station, that would come out of capital. The red are the everyday operating costs of the district, what we spend to pay our people, to do maintenance on the rigs, to do training. So, operating expenses, capital expenses. The green is the tax money that we have coming in. The brown, that's the timber money. So, if we go back to what Jack Westerman tried to teach me last summer, where he said our operating expenses and our taxes should kind of match, we notice that we don't match anywhere until we get back to about 2009. We come real close, and then we're off again for a couple of years. We're just not able to do what we need to do on the taxes that are coming in. And for those that want to see something beyond this year, this is taking a 2.5% increase in our costs and projecting it out for another 4 years based on the same tax that we're bringing in today. Or actually based on the new revision where it goes down to $2 million next year. So, what I want to show with this slide, our situation is not going to magically get better next year. We're going to have the same expenses. We're going to have our payroll, we're going to have our equipment, we're going to have our supplies. It's not going to get better by just sitting there and ignoring it. So last year when we sat in front of a bunch of our residents, they asked us what's going to happen if we vote and we pass a levy lid lift. Status quo. We're not anticipating asking for so much money that we're going to have extra money. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you we're going to build a new station, we're going to buy 3 new vehicles, we're going to hire full-time firefighter paramedics. All we want to do is keep the status quo here in Quilcene. We have no planned reduction in staffing, no planned elimination of our services, maybe some more consistent staffing. We'd like to establish a vehicle replacement fund. The other side of the coin, what happens if it fails? Changes will have to be made. We have a $100,000 gap. The easiest, best way that the commissioners can come up with is to eliminate the resident firefighter program. That would mean more reliance on the volunteers that we have, and we're going to talk about our volunteers in just a minute. It would mean there will be no EMTs or firefighters on duty in Quilcene on a 24/7 basis. We will lose some of our mutual aid with our other surrounding towns because they don't want to come in here and be the primary fire protection for Quilcene. And if we can't provide like aid to them, they're not going to come in and help us. What they will do though, when we have an ambulance call, they'll come in and they'll take the ambulance call from us once they get here, and then we don't get any revenue out of that. Okay? The Washington State Rating Bureau numbers, as we discussed earlier, will go up. We're going to have an unstaffed station. There'll be nobody here. There'll be nobody checking the rigs. There'll be nobody going into the schools, doing fire safety talks. Nobody in the station unless there's a call. Now, we had a pub ed or a public education type activity today. We went over and spent a couple hours with the school kids over at the beach. It's their last day of school beach party. And I asked our volunteers for help, and a lot of them work. So I have no problem with that. A lot of our volunteers work. So going over to the beach today, I had the duty crew of 2 guys, myself, and I had Deputy Chief Mosier, I had Matt McCrane, and I had Denise. I had, and Brandon. And Tyus was there. So I had 5 people. 5 people out of 25 were able to make it. That was a pretty good showing for us. Sometimes I'm lucky to get 1 or 2. So if we have nobody here manning the station, there won't be anybody to do these activities. We have a great group of volunteers here in Quilcene. We really do. I have no complaints about anybody, but their time is limited. Volunteerism, years ago, as Gary said, we used to have an overabundance of volunteers here in Quilcene. Not so much right now. We would be relying on the volunteers as our first line of defense. Here's what we demand of the volunteers when they walk in the door and shake our hand and say, I want to be a volunteer on your department. First thing we tell them is you got to go through 24 hours of unpaid training. Just to learn how we do things here in Quilcene. Learn how to turn on our radios. Learn how to start up a rig. Learn how to back the rigs up so we don't damage anything. Then if they want to become an emergency medical technician, they go to 175 hours of unpaid training. Plus their homework time, plus their ride time on an ambulance somewhere. That's just the minimum time they have to spend. They want to go to Firefighter Academy, that's 240 hours of unpaid time. Then they have their continuing education every year. We have mandatory subjects they have to learn every year. Then I get to call them out to help us out on calls any hour of the day or night. Even on holidays, even when their families are having parties. Sometimes it becomes a problem. Everybody has a family, everybody has other commitments. I know this is hard to see, and I'll put this up at the end. This is a list of our 25 volunteers on the Quilcene Fire District here. I gave everybody a title: resident, volunteer, fire ground support, medic. I tell you where they live, how many calls they've responded to here in Quilcene out of the last 276 calls. And then that's the percentage of calls that they make. I'm not faulting any one of these people because they all have lives outside of the fire department. But I want to give you an idea. If I lose my resident firefighters, if I have to lay them off, they're each going to go find another job somewhere. Some of them will move out of Quilcene. Some of them will get jobs in Seattle, but they won't be able to stay here without a job, right? So we're going to rely on our volunteers. So I've taken my list of my 25 volunteers, and these are the EMTs that I have on my roster that are not resident firefighter EMTs with the district right now. At the top, responding to a good number of calls, is Deputy Chief Mosier. He can come help us out, but he lives at the bottom of the Coyle Peninsula. If you get hurt or sick right here at Quilcene, we got a little bit of a wait for him to show up. Right here, I've got one of my ex-residents. He's at the top with a good 35% response rating. No fault of his own, but he quit the resident program, got himself a job so he could support his family, works about 50 or 60 hours a week, and he helps us out just as much as he can when he's around, but it's not quite 35% of the calls anymore. This EMT right here is also coming from Coyle. Very good responder, very dedicated. But after this one, I don't have anybody else who responds to more than 10% of the calls. So after those three, you got a 90% chance that a volunteer isn't showing up. No fault of theirs, they're all busy. If we have a fire at your home, the standards in the fire service say I need 4 certified interior structural firefighters to show up on the scene before we can go inside. That's 2 to go inside and 2 outside to rescue them if they get into trouble. Now the 2 outside can be the person in charge and it could be the pump operator. But still I need 4 certified firefighters to show up at your home. These are the certified firefighters I have if we don't have our resident program. We have myself, we have Greg again, we have we have Joe Vieira right here, who is one of my best responders, but again, he works all week long, sometimes on the weekends. But between Greg, Joe, and myself, we got a pretty good response. Nobody else has more than a 2% response rate. So the 3 of us would be waiting for an engine to come mutual aid from another town before we make an interior attack. This is why our resident program is important to us. We need those 2 guys that are on duty. Last year, we had a couple of very spirited meetings here, and we talked about our financial issues, and we had some comments and questions that came out of it. And I want everybody who was here last year to know that we've thought about those comments and questions very hard. We've talked about the timber money. Everybody wanted to know, where'd the timber money go? Where's your website? You guys don't even have a website. We do have a website now. The information on this meeting is up on the website. The press release is on the website. This whole program will be up there tomorrow morning. We are now using our website to get the information out to the community. You're not ready yet. We need more information. I hope we give you that information that you need tonight. Everybody wanted to know where our spending was, and I believe we had copies of some of our spending reports over on that table today. Tell us your plan. Our plan depends on the community. This is just an informational meeting tonight. We want to hear from the community. That was a comment from last year, and when you really think about it, yeah, I wasn't here a year and a half ago, so I could probably say there were probably some mistakes made in the past. But you have a new chief up here now who's watching every penny that goes out the door. You have a set of 3 commissioners here who just became a team in December of 2012. So they've only been here a year and a half as a team. They're watching every penny that I watch. Okay, so I think we've got a pretty good handle on our finances now. We've got a pretty good idea on what's coming in and going out. And maybe in the past this happened. But we can't control the past, and we can't go back to the past. We have to just worry about what we're going to do next year to pay our bills. Everybody wanted to know what happens if it fails. We've talked about that already. I just told you the response time without the resident program. We don't know what the response time will be. Depends on how many more volunteers we can pick up. If you look at the person to the left of you, look to the person to the right of you. Do you think they're a qualified volunteer firefighter or EMT for us? Right. You are 100% representative of the Quilcene community. We have a hard time finding volunteers. We don't have those 20 and 30-year-olds that we would love to get on our roster. We don't have it. People were very adamant, do this right the first time because you don't want to lose. And that's why we're getting the word out to everybody. Separate your money needs. What are you asking for? We are asking for operational expenses. Our operational expenses are not matching our revenue. Those are the decisions I mentioned before. We either have to increase or eliminate. And those are those same 3 choices that we have. Cut some money out of our budget, ask for some operational tax levy, ask for a little bit more of an increase to help start putting some money away into a replacement fund. Before I get to the questions, I understand, on a personal note here, how people can come to a meeting like this and you can be angry and you can be mad. You guys can turn the lights on. I understand being mad and angry. And hey, I'm mad and angry that we're out of money. It's not a good situation. But we have to move forward from here. The fire district hasn't come to the voters and asked for an increase since 1988. We haven't. And I think we, as our management team, I think we've been very good stewards of the money. Now, I probably could have come up with another 15 diagrams and charts for you. I just don't have the time. I'm a one-man band when it comes to managing the department. Between myself and Deputy Chief Mosier, we're trying to run this department. And I'd rather spend my time out helping our young firemen. I'd rather be out training with the firemen. But the last 6 weeks, we've been putting together these facts for you. So I know we probably could have had more information for you. And if you have specific questions, we will get that information for you. We have absolutely nothing to hide, nothing that we don't want to show you. We just presented you with everything that we have right now so that we can get the word out to you.